Caitlin Clark, the phenomenon who's been lighting up scoreboards and shattering records, was left off the USA 2024 Olympic team roster. This decision sent shockwaves through the basketball world, leaving fans and analysts alike scratching their heads. It was like leaving Michael Jordan off the dream team. It just didn't make sense. Now that the dust has settled and the Olympics are behind us, we're taking a deep dive into this mind-boggling decision. Was it a colossal mistake or a stroke of genius? Buckle up, folks, because we're about to break it all down. Let's talk numbers, because in basketball, the stats don't lie. Since Caitlin Clark stepped onto a WNBA court, it's been like watching a human highlight reel. We're talking about skyrocketing viewership numbers that have league executives doing double takes. Clark isn't just filling seats, she's packing arenas to the rafters. We've seen games with attendance numbers that would make some NBA teams jealous. And it's not just about butts and seats, folks. Television ratings are through the roof. We're seeing regular season games pulling in numbers that used to be reserved for playoffs. Clark isn't just a player. She's a one-woman marketing machine. She's doing for the WNBA what Magic and Bird did for the NBA in the 80s, making it must-see TV. The Clark effect is real, and it's spectacular. In the world of pro sports, rookies are supposed to pay their dues, right? Well, someone forgot to tell Caitlin Clark, this freshman phenom is rewriting the record books faster than we can print new ones. We're talking about a player who's not just keeping up with the veterans, she's leaving them in her dust. Clark is dropping dimes like a point guard possessed, raining threes from zip codes that aren't even on the map, and putting up scoring numbers that have us double-checking the box scores. And let's not forget about her clutch factor. This kid has ice in her veins when the game is on the line. Veterans with a decade in the league are watching Clark and wondering if they've stepped into a time machine. She's not just good for a rookie, she's good, period. Clark is serving notice. The future of women's basketball isn't coming, it's already here. Alright, basketball fans, let's rewind the tape to before the draft, when the WNBA's GOAT, Diana Taurasi, threw down the gauntlet. Taurasi, never one to mince words, said she wouldn't pick Clark first in the draft. It was a classic case of the old guard challenging the new blood, but when these two titans of the game finally faced off on the court, it was like watching a changing of the guard in real time. Clark didn't just hold her own, she put on a clinic. We saw crossovers that had Taurasi looking like she was stuck in cement, no-look passes that would make Magic Johnson proud, and deep threes that had the crowd going wild. By the final buzzer, it wasn't just the scoreboard that told the story, it was the look on Taurasi's face. It was a look that said, this kid is the real deal. Taurasi might have won the war of words before the season, but Clark won the battle on the hardwood, and that's where it counts. Let's get real for a second, folks. For years, the WNBA has been fighting an uphill battle when it comes to finances. We've seen players heading overseas just to make ends meet, and heard whispers about the league's struggle to turn a profit. But then along comes Caitlin Clark, and suddenly the conversation is changing faster than a fast break. We're seeing merchandise flying off the shelves like it's Black Friday. Jersey sales are through the roof, and not just in Indiana. Clark's impact is league-wide. Suddenly sponsors are lining up and TV networks are in bidding wars for broadcasting rights. It's like Clark brought a magic wand to the league's balance sheet. And here's the kicker. By leaving her off Team USA, they didn't just miss out on her skills on the court, they potentially left millions on the table in terms of viewership and sponsorship. In the world of pro sports, money talks, and right now it's screaming Caitlin Clark's name. Now, let's dive into the heart of this controversy. Jennifer Rosati, chair of the Women's National Team Committee, claimed that Clark didn't meet the selection criteria for Team USA. Folks, I've seen some head scratchers in my time, but this one takes the cake. We're talking about a player who's dominating the top women's basketball league in the world, a player who's not just keeping pace with Olympic veterans, but often outshining them. So what exactly were these mysterious criteria? Were they looking for players who can dribble while solving differential equations? Or maybe they needed to hit threes blindfolded? Because short of that, I'm struggling to see what boxes Clark wasn't ticking. This statement didn't just raise eyebrows, it raised serious questions about the selection process and what exactly USA Basketball was looking for in its quest for gold. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the lynx in the room. Cheryl Reeve, head coach of Team USA and the Minnesota Lynx, had been throwing more shade than a solar eclipse when it came to Caitlin Clark. We heard comments dismissing Clark's impact, downplaying her achievements, and even some not-so-subtle eye-rolling at the attention she was getting. Now, in the world of sports, little trash talk is par for the course, but when it's coming from the coach who's supposed to be assembling the best team to represent our country, that's when eyebrows start rising faster than a Clark three-pointer. It made you wonder, was this about putting together the best team, or was there something else at play? Were we seeing basketball decisions, or was this a case of old school versus new school? If you love an underdog story, grab your popcorn, because Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have been serving up classics all season long. We've seen David versus Goliath matchups that would make Hollywood scriptwriters jealous. Take the game against Cheryl Reeve's Minnesota Lynx, a team stacked with talent and led by one of the most decorated coaches in the game. On paper, it should have been a blowout, but Clark, she didn't get the memo. We saw her weaving through defenders like they were standing still, dropping dimes that had the crowd gasping and hitting clutch shots that sucked the air out of the arena. By the fourth quarter, it wasn't just a game, it was a statement. Clark wasn't just hanging with the big dogs, she was teaching them new tricks. It was a performance that had everyone, from the fans in the nosebleeds to the commentators in the booth, asking the same question: how in the world was this kid not on Team USA? For those of you with a keen memory for basketball history, this whole situation might have given you a serious case of deja vu. Cast your minds back to 2016, when another generational talent, Candace Parker, was shockingly left off the Olympic roster. The basketball world was stunned then, just as it was with Clark. It's like watching a rerun, but this time in high definition and with even more at stake. Both cases raised uncomfortable questions about the selection process. Was it truly about picking the best players, or were there other factors at play? Politics, personal preferences, and a reluctance to embrace new talent? Whatever the reason, history seemed to be repeating itself, and USA basketball found itself once again in the hot seat. The parallels were striking, and they forced us to ask, has USA basketball learned from its past, or are we watching the same movie with a different cast? Let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture. By leaving Clark off the Olympic roster, USA basketball wasn't just making a decision about one player. They were potentially altering the global landscape of women's basketball. Clark isn't just a national sensation, she's a global phenomenon. We're talking about a player who could do for women's basketball what Messi did for soccer or Serena did for tennis, transcend the sport and become a worldwide icon. Her presence in Paris could have been a game changer, not just for Team USA, but for the visibility and popularity of women's basketball on a global stage. We're in an era where social media can turn a single spectacular play into an international trending topic. Clark has that kind of star power. By leaving her at home, USA basketball might have missed out on a once-in-a-generation opportunity to elevate the entire sport. It wasn't just about winning gold, it was about growing the game. Folks, if you thought the atmosphere in a packed arena was electric, you should have seen the fan reaction to Clark's Olympic snub. Social media lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. We saw hashtags trending, petitions gathering signatures faster than Clark gathers assists, and fans vowing to boycott watching the Olympics altogether. It was a level of engagement and passion that the WNBA had been dreaming of for years, but here's the twist. It wasn't just coming from die-hard basketball fans. We saw casual viewers, people who'd never watched a full WNBA game suddenly becoming vocal advocates for Clark. It was as if the decision to leave her off the team united fans in a way we'd never seen before. This wasn't just a sports story anymore, it became a cultural moment, and it raised a fascinating question. In the age of social media and fan engagement, can public opinion actually influence Olympic team selections? As we wrap up this whirlwind tour of the Caitlin Clark saga, we're left with the million-dollar question: did USA basketball commit the biggest fumble since Chris Webber called that infamous timeout? On one hand, they assembled a team of proven veterans with Olympic experience, and they brought home the gold. Mission accomplished, right? But on the other hand, they left at home a player who's not just the future of the sport, but its present. A player who's bringing in new fans, shattering records, and changing the game every time she steps on the court. Yes, Team USA won gold without Clark, but did they miss an opportunity to showcase the brightest star in women's basketball on the world's biggest stage? Absolutely. As we look back on the games, all eyes are still on Team USA, and you can bet that every missed shot, every turnover during the tournament had fans and pundits alike asking, what if Clark was here? It's a question that will echo through the halls of USA basketball for years to come, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, it'll lead to a reevaluation of how we select our Olympic teams in the future. One thing's for sure, the Caitlin Clark story is far from over, and we'll be watching every chapter with bated breath. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to slam that like button and share this video with your basketball crazy friends. And that's a wrap from DunkHub. Catch you in a few days. Stay ballin'.